Why should Obama elude or escape scrutiny? You don't have to prove up front that he's committed a felony. You don't have to prove up front that he's committed any crime. That's the point of an investigation. But you have enough information, it doesn't even have to be probable cause, but you have enough information that it is worthy of an official criminal investigation. Donald Trump, indicted, investigated, trials, sick. And then when it comes to Obama, we're told, don't touch him, immunity. I heard one of these reporters say that legal experts are saying that this immunity decision from the Supreme Court not only protected Trump, but it protects Obama now that he's left office, his official duties. Am I reading the same opinion they read? No, they're just full of crap. Of course there's immunity. A president cannot be charged when he leaves office. Certainly not when he's in office, but when he leaves office, for official acts he took as president. So like when Obama ordered the taking out of a leading terrorist with al-Qaeda who'd been an American citizen and lived in Northern Virginia, was an imam for several years, and two of the hijackers came out of his mosque and so forth. He can't be charged for killing that person, nor should he have been. But ladies and gentlemen, if the President of the United States, let's take an obvious example, whomever it is embezzling funds, or he's running some kind of a drug racket while he's President of the United States, those are not his official duties. And so after he leaves the presidency, he can be charged with that. If a President of the United States, Barack Obama, is involved in a scheme, the purpose of which is to interfere with a presidential election because he wants Hillary Clinton and the Democrats to win. And subsequent to that, if that president is involved in a scheme to usurp the new president's role or to sabotage the new president's role, that's not an official duty. And certainly they can be charged with that. Now you'd have to present it to a court and make the case and so forth, that it doesn't fall under official duties and so forth. But I'm not getting into the weeds. I'm just saying, yes, a president can be charged with that. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting. I went back and looked this morning. There are criminal statutes for making false claims, and it even says false claims and hoaxes. It each actually uses the word hoaxes. And Donald Trump has called this a hoax from day one, and he's exactly correct. So here he is the other day, President of the Philippines, and you know he takes questions from the media or he makes statements during the course of these events, and he did so the other day related to what took place with Obama and this Russia hoax that was intended to be used to prevent him from getting elected and to undermine his presidency. Go.
Now we found absolute, this isn't like evidence this is like proof, irrefutable proof that Obama was seditious, that Obama was trying to lead a coup, and it was with Hillary Clinton, with all these other people, but Obama headed it up. And, you know, I get a kick when I hear everyone talks about people I never even heard of. It was this one. No, it was Obama. He headed it up. And it says so right in the papers. Got everything. Got everything. This is the biggest scandal in the history of our country, and it really goes on to even the auto pen, because it all relates to the same thing. It all started the same sick minds. You have an auto pen, which is a tremendous, well, we don't have a president, we have an auto pen that signs everything.
This was the first attempt to take out Trump. Think about what this man's been through. Think about what the Democrats have done, how evil they are, how corrupt they are, that they will do anything for power. This is why this book is so important, and you'll understand this whole idea of power. Power is about coercion, it's about force, it's about undermining the basis for enlightened government, representative, consensual government. It is about anything goes for the centralization of power, the purpose of which is to prevent competition, is to prevent other parties like the Republican Party, like Donald Trump, from winning and so forth and so on. This is why I call this negative power, Marxism, Islamism, soft negative power, what happens in the West, what's happening in the United States as it leads toward more aggressive negative power. It is the constant attempt to violate the firewalls that are put in place to protect us from the ruling class, to protect us from an autocracy. And the book gets into it in great detail. I think you're going to find it very interesting. Conversely, positive power and soft positive power. Positive power, we get that out of our Declaration. We get it out of the Enlightenment. We get it out of our belief in God and so forth and so on. And I want to get into this in great detail next week. But this all applies to events that are taking place, whether it's this, whether it's the immigration and deportation, so-called controversy that the Democrats have created. All of this, there's a reason for all of this. And my concern is, while we talk about it at a superficial level, while we say, isn't this awful, they should follow the law and so forth and so on, we never go beneath the surface. Instead, we say, liberty, yes. Unalienable rights, yes. Tyranny, bad. Okay, what does all that mean and why? Well, you don't have liberty under certain conditions. You don't have rights under certain conditions. They mean nothing theoretically, right? I mean, they have a meaning, but they mean nothing in your everyday life. It's a theory. Liberty without power doesn't exist. It exists in here, but nowhere else. Or the misapplication and abuse of power, you don't live in liberty. You live in enslavement. You live in tyranny and so forth and so on. So I want to get into that in great detail, but it applies to all these things that are going on today, including this, with the effort to usurp the Trump campaign, destroy the Trump campaign, the use of a FISA warrant, all these other things that took place, and the effort to undermine his presidency. I call this authoritarian democracy, and that is what's practiced by the Democrat Party, authoritarian democracy. You go through the motions of a democracy, but it's authoritarian. And this is important to understand, particularly in our country. That's what you saw here during the course of that election in 2016 and right after he was sworn in and beyond all the investigations of Donald Trump. They used the impeachment clause twice, but they used it unconstitutionally, illegitimately. And yet because we call it the impeachment clause, it's viewed as legit. They abused our federal laws to try and take out Donald Trump. They did it twice. First time around, second time around. But because we call it the law, and we call these people the prosecutors, and we call these people judges and grand juries, it creates the patina of legitimacy. But it's not. There's nothing legitimate about any of it, because they use power as a way of destroying the law. But they claim it's a lawful use of power, things of that sort. Now, Speaker Johnson was asked, are you prepared to subpoena Barack Obama? Now, this is an important point. Why should Obama elude or escape scrutiny? You don't have to prove up front that he's committed a felony. You don't have to prove up front that he's committed any crime. That's the point of an investigation. But you have enough information, it doesn't even have to be probable cause, but you have enough information that it is worthy of an official criminal investigation. Again, every criminal investigation doesn't end in a charge, but it's worthy of a criminal investigation to examine it. Certainly this is. Certainly given the precedent that was used against Donald Trump when there was no basis, except a pretext, to go after Donald Trump on any of these issues. None. And notice, he hasn't committed any crimes. Regardless of what took place in the Manhattan courtroom, there's a Potemkin trial, which we've talked about at length. So why shouldn't Barack Obama come under scrutiny? By Congress. Remember the January 6th committee? By Congress. Remember the two impeachments? Why shouldn't Barack Obama be criminally investigated, put under oath, and impanel a grand jury even before all that, in order to determine the extent to which he was involved in a silent coup, as I called it? He should be. He should be. They talk about transparency with the Epstein case. Now, you know my view. That's very, to me, peripheral. It's a distraction. I doubt much is going to come out of that. The Democrats controlled those files. You got to assume, worst case, they scrubbed them. If there's any Democrats there, and worst case, if there was anything on the president, which there's not, that would have been put out already. So I'm not into shiny objects. This is not a shiny object. This is an object where the Democrat Party needs to be exposed. I'll tell you one other thing while I'm at it. They should also be investigating the second effort to destroy Donald Trump. This is the first, the silent coup. But the second was with Jack Smith and the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and those people and their judges. Now that they have access to those documents at the Department of Justice, they'll look at those documents to see if there's violations of any federal statutes. Obstruction statutes, other statutes, false statement statutes, 1001. They should look at those things. They should see if there are any violations in terms of leaks that took place, because the leaks were unending, including grand jury leaks of 6E information, it's called. That's a crime. They should see whether the Espionage Act was violated. They like that one. That is, whether classified information was discussed with third parties or released to the media as well. They should look at that whole thing on how it was generated and took place, and see if any documents or other information was destroyed while they're at it. Again, obstruction, Presidential Records Act, all the things they were trying to use against Trump, which can actually be used against other people who aren't president. And they should look into the relationship between the Department of Justice and the White House and the communications that took place there, between the DA in Manhattan and the DA in Atlanta, and the communications that took place there, and the communication between the White House counsel and the National Archives and all the communications that took there. We have access to those records now. So I think it's an oversight not to pay attention to that too. Not to pay attention to that too. So Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who I like very much, are you prepared to subpoena Barack Obama? And he's interviewed by our friend David Brody, who is a wonderful, wonderful man. He's a very dear friend, and he's a real journalist at CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network, which I love. Go.
What Tulsi Gabbard has done, the DNI chief, in essence, declassifying hundreds of documents that seem to suggest that manufactured intelligence was at play here with the Obama administration regarding this Russian collusion hoax. I've heard Stephen Miller call it a seditious conspiracy. I've heard Tulsi Gabbard call it a treasonous conspiracy. You're a constitutional guy. What do you see in this exactly? How do you term it?
Well, I don't know how to summarize it by way of description in a snappy phrase, but I will tell you it is deeply problematic. And before I became Speaker of the House, I served on the House Judiciary Committee, which had jurisdiction over a lot of this. And we knew what was happening. We knew intuitively, and we were gathering the evidence as we were investigating all of this ourselves. We knew the Russia collusion thing was a hoax. They used it as a basis to attack the president mercilessly. I served on his impeachment defense teams twice. That would be unheard of in history, that a president would be impeached twice on such spurless claims. But in those processes, as we were preparing for those defenses, as we were investigating with our oversight responsibility in judiciary, we recognized that the people who are being called out now were involved in a scheme. We knew that it was a shameless, false set of accusations, and yet they perpetuated the lie on the American people, and they looked right into the camera and just lied, clearly. And they knew what they were up to the whole time. So there must be accountability for that, because what it does ultimately, the greatest threat of all this is not just what they've done to President Trump as an individual, it's what they're doing to the institutions, even broader than that. They have diminished the people's faith in our system of justice itself, in the institution of the Department of Justice, in the institution of the FBI. And those are critical functions that are played in a constitutional republic. And so we're in the process of restoring trust and rebuilding the people's belief in our system of justice itself. And it's an extraordinary challenge that was brought about because people were involved in a sinister plot. And so there must be accountability.
You say there must be accountability. The DOJ will work on the criminal aspect of this. What's the role of the House here specifically? I mean, people want to see subpoenas, they want to see depositions, they want to see whether it be Brennan, Clapper, potentially the former president of the United States. Are you willing to go down that route? Because a lot of people want to see some of these folks questioned under oath.
Of course. Look, I think we have a responsibility to follow the truth where it leads, and to do it in an unbiased fashion, to do effectively the opposite of what that other team did. They're engaged in a partisan political plot to take down their foe and the other party. We need to be about the rule of law and bringing order to the chaos and searching out the truth, because the American people are owed those answers. So we have some very bright, very capable, very strong leaders at Judiciary and Oversight, Chairman Jim Jordan, Chairman Jamie Comer, and the other committees that would be involved. And I do expect that whether there's a special counsel appointed, which some are suggesting, and or in conjunction with the House investigations, that we will get the answers, and there will be accountability to the extent that we're able to do that, referring people to the DOJ for prosecution and any other measure that is appropriate as we begin to uncover more of the facts.
Does it get tricky at all with the former president, President Obama, looking at what his role in this is and bringing him in for some sort of deposition, potential subpoena?
Well, listen, I mean, we have no concern about that. If it's uncomfortable for him, he shouldn't have been involved in overseeing this, which is what it appears to us has happened. There's a lot of allegations on the table. Our job is to go and follow each of those trails and to find out the truth. So those are very serious allegations with very serious implications, but we're going to have very serious people working on it, and we will get the answers.
Great. What a great answer. Great interview. I don't believe in the appointment of a special counsel. They take too long. We don't have years and years for this. And they can become rogue and so forth. They don't need a special counsel. There's no conflict of interest here. If Obama were investigating Obama, that would be a conflict of interest. But there's no way you could say there's a conflict of interest here. So they need to pursue this, and they do need to investigate it, as I think they need to investigate the second volume of this, which is what took place in this last election against Donald Trump as well. And so it's very interesting. I think the speaker has a very good handle on this because he explained it better than most. This is a matter of collusion in the sense that they were trying to concoct arguments using Russia collusion as a basis for their effort to take out the president. And if you take away anything from this, it should be their effort to destroy and interfere with his campaign, and then the effort to set him up and destroy him soon after he took the oath of office, within weeks. Even during the transition before that, when Comey met with him, and he had a whole bunch of questions for him, and he was trying to set him up. Then he goes back to his car after he interviews Trump, and he types it up. The FBI director. And that's after they had a meeting in the Oval Office with Obama. So, yes, Obama needs to be questioned under oath about all of this.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.